What scriptures would you go to prove we are no longer under the dietary laws of the Mosaic law? Mark chapter 7, verse 19. If this text is true, then I think it impacts all the dietary laws from the Old Testament. So Mark 7:19 says, for it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach, and then out the body. And then in parentheses, Mark's commentary is, in saying this, Jesus declared all food clean. Most modern translations are going to look at this as Jesus making a statement that now all food is clean. I do not go to the Acts passage where Peter is having a vision, because that vision has nothing to do with food. When God tells them, do not call what I have called clean unclean, that has nothing to do with food. It has to do with the nations. It has to do with quote-unquote pagans and Gentiles. The issue there is people, not food. The food is the example of God now accepting all the nations. Okay, so a lot of Christians will quote that passage and it's out of context and it's hermeneutically incorrect. But I like the Mark 7 passage. The other thing you could also say is that the New Testament doesn't repeat these things. The New Testament doesn't repeat these dietary laws. This is out of Romans 14:14. Paul says, I know and am persuaded in the Lord Jesus that nothing is unclean in itself, but it is unclean for anyone who thinks it to be unclean. So what I read out of there was Romans 14:14. The context here has to do with food, and some people are weak in their faith or strong in their faith and are bothered by certain meats they're eating, and some people aren't, and all are Christians here. And then so in verse 13 he says, therefore let us stop passing judgment on one another. Instead, make up your mind not to put any stumbling block or obstacle in the way of a brother or sister. And then he says, I'm convinced and being fully persuaded in the Lord that nothing is unclean by itself. But if anyone regards something unclean, that it is for that person is unclean. For if your brother or sister is distressed because of what you eat, there's food again, you are no longer acting in love. Do not by your eating destroy someone for whom Christ died. So again, the food is the context here. And then in the book of Romans, we get that the Roman church has Jews and Gentiles in it, and then they're having different issues. I would also go to Acts 15. I actually think this is probably the strongest of all three of these texts. The discussion is, Peter says, why are we going to put laws that our forefathers couldn't keep, we ourselves haven't kept, on these Gentile believers? And then they write this letter essentially saying, stay away from sexual immorality. Don't eat with meat with blood in it. They don't give them any other dietary laws. It is my judgment, therefore, this is Peter talking, it is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. Instead, we should write to them, telling them to abstain from food polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, from the meat of strangled animals, and from blood. For the law of Moses has been preached in every city from the earliest times, and is read in the synagogues on every Sabbath. And then they wrote this letter. Another passage I would go to, Hebrews 8:13 says, by calling this covenant new, the new covenant, he has made the first one obsolete. And what is obsolete and outdated will soon disappear. So according to the author of the book of Hebrews, the old covenant is replaced by a better and greater covenant, the new covenant. And that old covenant is no longer necessary. It's obsolete.